Hello everyone, I'm Vitaly, CEO and founder of the realLaw AI platform, and today we'll analyze the legislation for one of the biggest recent reforms in the UAE regarding e-invoicing. Forget about sending PDF invoice files starting from next year. Now everything will be in XML format. To keep you from getting lost in the laws on this topic, we've prepared a separate e-invoicing tab for you in our legal table. Let me show you how to get there. We go to the legal table, and right here is the e-invoicing tab. It's set by default for all users. We click on it and we see all the laws, guides, and acts currently in force in the UAE regarding e-invoicing. Let's start with the foundation, with the very first legislative act. This is Ministerial Decision number 243. And look, there's an Easter egg hidden right here. It says here that the status is not in force. And indeed, that is the case. The decision itself is already on the Ministry of Finance website in the e-invoicing section, but it hasn't actually taken effect yet, because it hasn't been published in the official gazette. And if we quickly scroll to the end, in the last chapter, we'll see that this is a mandatory condition for this law to take effect. Of course, this will be done soon, perhaps with some minimal changes. Nevertheless, always keep this in mind. We track legislation daily, and as soon as the decision is officially published, the status here will change to enforce. What is described in this legislative act? First, the most important part is who is covered by e-invoicing, specifically B2B and B2G transactions. In Article number 6, we see certain deadlines here stating that an e-invoice must be issued within 14 days of the transaction date. This article defines the concept of credit notes and specifies situations where you must issue a credit note, such as if a transaction is cancelled, the deal amount changes, or you gave a discount. Also in Article 9, there's the concept of self-billing, which is permitted in e-invoicing. And in Article 11, it's established that e-invoices and credit notes must be stored within the state in accordance with the tax procedure law. But subsequent clarifications showed that it's not mandatory to store them on physical servers located in the UAE. Cloud storage is permitted. We've covered Decision 243. Moving on to the next laws. This is Decision 244 on implementing e-invoicing, and the subsequent amendment to it was Decision 66. Here, by the way, you can see the following feature of our platform. What do our specialists do? All laws that have undergone subsequent amendments and changes are published by us as consolidated versions. You can see this in the example of even such a small decision. It was issued in 2025, number 244, but in May 2026, it was supplemented by Decision 66. Accordingly, we have created a single document that reflects all the new amendments. So what is Decision 244 about? Actually, it defines the most important thing, which is the system implementation timeline. And just in May, they were shifted slightly for companies with a turnover of over 50 million dirhams, giving an extra 3 months to sign the contract with an ASP. The deadlines currently set and in effect are October 30th to sign the contract with an ASP and to launch the system from January 1st, 2027. For companies with a turnover of less than 50 million dirhams, the deadlines are shifted and signing the contract is allowed until March 31st, 2027, with the system going live on July 1st, 2027. We've covered Decision 244 and Decision 66. Let's talk about ASPs, the accredited service providers, for whom separate decisions have been issued. The main one is Decision number 64 from 2025, which has also already been supplemented by Decision 56. Here, actually, with such a small volume of legislation, you can see how quickly laws change in the UAE and how necessary it is to use electronic platforms to track them. Simply downloading PDFs into folders or tracking via Telegram channels will already fail because the volume of laws and the speed of new ones being issued has changed significantly. Let's get into this decision. Its essence is that it defines the requirements for ASPs, meaning it specifies the necessary parameters that a company, an IT company, must meet to receive accreditation from the Ministry of Finance. What's important in this decision for businesses, rather than ASPs, to avoid technical jargon, is that every provider is required by this law to provide 100 electronic invoices to their clients per year. Accordingly, if you have a small number of invoices in your business, depending on your turnover, e-invoicing will be practically free for you. You'll only need to pay for the system connection, but the per invoice payment will be free for you. And I'll specifically highlight Decision 56, which came out in 2026 relatively recently. Its nuance is that it actually slightly relaxed the requirements for the providers themselves. While previously it was necessary for the companies themselves to have experience in e-invoicing, now this Decision 56 allows ASPs to use the services of third parties, third companies that have experience in e-invoicing. But this is actually better for business, as it lowers the barrier to entry. Accordingly, there will be more players in the market, more competition, which should lead to lower prices. Next, we move on to Cabinet Decision number 106. And these are, of course, the fines. A decision has already been issued that defines the fine amounts that businesses will pay if they fail to meet the legal requirements for implementing and using e-invoicing systems. The fines are substantial. Well, with amounts like 1,000 dirhams a day for delays or 5,000 dirhams a month, you can rack up a pretty significant fine total in just 1 month. So my recommendation is, don't delay the implementation or the signing of the contract with an ASP. The closer you get to the deadline, the more companies will also be rushing and in a hurry. All providers will be busy processing incoming applications, and you might either run out of time or end up choosing an unsuitable ASP due to the rush. And finally, 2 technical documents. The first document covers the mandatory fields for e-invoicing. Here you can see the full list of items that must be in every e-invoice according to the PINTAE specification. This is a separately developed specification from the PEPL system that specifically applies to the United Arab Emirates. These are technical terms, but they're very important for your invoice to pass through the e-invoicing system through the 5-corner model without issues, delays, or most importantly, rejection. And now let's move on to the guide released by the Ministry of Finance with explanations on e-invoicing. By the way, an interesting point is that this is already the 2nd version of the guide, and it came out very recently on June 1st with new changes. What's in here? More terms. It details the 5-corner model system that will be implemented in the UAE. Not all countries, by the way, have implemented such a system. Many work with a 4-corner system or, for example, a central portal system. The Emirates chose a decentralized system with many ASP options, which will certainly be more flexible in the future and help with integration with other states. A few words about the 5-corner system. I think everyone already knew about this because there have been many webinars and training videos. Just very quickly. The first corner is the supplier, the second is the supplier's ASP, the third is the buyer's ASP, the fourth is the buyer or service recipient, and corner number 5 is the Emirates Tax Authority. All invoices must pass through this circuit. In this system, the FTA doesn't approve or reject invoices. It simply receives the data and stores it in its repository to have complete information for your tax reporting. There's a separate table in this guide on the responsibilities shared between the supplier, the buyer, and the ASP. And a very important part of this guide is the e-invoicing formats defined here, what they should look like, the transactions covered, and specific scenarios that are important for those affected to study. For example, investment holding companies, separately for tax groups, and separately for those not registered in the UAE. A specific detail, for instance, regarding tax groups is that all companies within a tax group must have an agreement with an ASP, and each company will have its own unique number for e-invoicing. This guide also defines exemptions for companies that are not subject to e-invoicing, which we've already seen in Law number 243, and covers the implementation phases. A very important part of the guide is the possible scenarios for electronic invoices, because when creating invoices, you'll need to choose which scenario you're following. They are all listed in the guide. E-invoicing will affect every company registered in the UAE. Therefore, owners, accountants, and tax specialists need to start studying the legislation and ASPs right now to sign agreements on time and implement e-invoicing into their systems. It's necessary to know the laws, so for everyone who hasn't registered on the realLaw platform yet, I suggest doing so right now. The feature you see now, the list of laws, the legal table, is available to all users, including those on the free plan. This way, not only will you be able to track new laws daily, and they'll always be stored in one place, and the legal table is set up so that all new laws appear at the top, filtered by date. Consequently, at the top of the list, you'll always see all the laws that have been issued in the UAE very recently. That's all for now. Thank you, everyone. Stay compliant with UAE laws.